First things first, you already win. You already him. You don't gotta pretend. Fuck them, you already king. You stay real, you confident in your skin. It's all now. Sit in the power that you already in. This the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cruel sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star gentleman. Couldn't walk in my fucking shoes to carry him. Excuse my borderline is very thin. Been married to the game like ever since maybe 2010. I realized most of y'all not serious. Point blank period. I flex and twist necks like cherry stems. Thought he was buried, but there he is, a new narrative. I keep winning. What's going on, y'all? This is How Billy Sees It. It's October 25th, and I believe this is episode 95, yo. We are doing 30 for 30, 30 episodes in 30 days. Is it 95? Episode 12 of this series. We keep rolling. Yesterday I did an episode where I talked a bit about some of my thoughts on some of the new media. What brought me into that conversation was a discourse between comedian Corey Holcomb, and NFL athlete, NFL superstar, Cam Newton. And just the stuff swirling around that. Check that episode out to get into the details on that. But Cam and them, they spent 3 hours, and a lot of it was kind of, interesting conversation. I tried to address what I think is a tendency for men to get in a room and do together on media when the camera's rolling, and how we need to be mindful of that. How we need to be mindful of including the voices of women and the perspectives of women, and to lay off women sometimes, even if they're not in the room. Maybe we can make fun of each other. Maybe we can notice the things that we do, men, our pathologies, our insecurities and manifestations and the harms. Just lay off the chicks sometimes, why not? Huh? Why not? And, when we, the episode before that was an episode about the healing journey, I believe. Yeah. And let me see exactly what that episode is about, because I want to refer to it real quick. It was... No, the one before that was Who the What. That was a very interesting episode. But before that was the linguistics of spirituality. So it was about spirituality, which includes some of my theories about the healing journey. I wanted to come back to that for a second, because just to kind of highlight how in that I try to describe something that I don't think is describable. Spirituality I don't think is describable. I think that words are impediments, in fact, when trying to describe something like spirituality. Spirituality is an attempt at, it is a space that hasn't been mapped. One of the things when I was more associating with atheism, one of the really interesting arguments that Christopher Hitchens would make, and this is a true statement and a true argument, is today there's things we know about the human condition, about our neurology and the ways that our brain works, and we have germ theory. There was a time where people would get sick, and this would be in the domain of spirits. People would get sick and fall ill, and people would die from things that people didn't understand. They didn't have a germ theory. They didn't have a medical domain that offered a meaningful story, a meaningful, replicable, consistent story about what was happening. And so it landed in this realm of spirituality, and people thought that you were cursed, and people almost got sick. Oh, they were this. It was a whole spiritual thing, until it was given language and reason and logic, until they were able to put certain things under a microscope, and then you were able to see connections and form a deeper understanding. And so you see how there's a link between the spirituality and science. This idea that they are opposed to each other is a mythology. Applause for that. that any good discipline is looking at the same thing, is looking at what is and is giving language to it. And I'm certain that all of these disciplines, the scientific disciplines, broken down further, chemistry, biology, physics, that these are all pointing to sections of what is, and that this spiritual domain is also pointing to a section of what is, but it is a section that the sciences have neglected, or that the sciences have dismissed and failed to, give meaningful language to, and to map meaningfully. So there's this other spiritual thing that is. And what's so nutty about it is, again, it is this space that um, lacks language. But further, what makes it even nuttier is that, you know, I think there's elements to the spiritual slash, physics. There's an element that cuts against our basic understanding about like our shared experience. It cuts against our basic sense that, there are there you can list the good things that someone should do. You can list, something like the 10 commandments, or list um top 5 things to do in order to be happy, or list, something like this, something that we can articulate. Again, it's a space that you can't articulate so cleanly. What I'm trying to point to actually is like can be exemplified in this thing that I saw on Facebook. Actually, there was a woman who was like a body positive feminist activist, um, white woman. She's making a claim on Facebook. She was like, any any sort of like weight loss celebrations are fat shaming. She was like poo pooing anyone who ever lost any weight. If you put that on Facebook, you're engaging in fat shaming. Um, and she got some people kind of agreeing with her, but most people making fun of her and telling her to be quiet, and she's ridiculous. And I disagreed with her. And I let her know that I actually disagreed with her so much that I took it, I reposted it on my page, and disagreed with her in a very public way, replying to it saying, no, this is not the case. Like, I understand from where she comes. She explained that obviously there's a whole bunch of industries that inject in us the anxiety around uh, what we call appropriate weight, um, demeaning certain body types, idealizing other body types. There's a whole bunch of stuff that does this all of the time. And she wants to cut against that. She notices that, and she wants to say that, you know, any weight centric or body centric assessment, any weight loss goals, any even a goal of weight loss is fat phobia, and is a learned um, condition. I think that that's wrong. I think that that's close. I think that that's like that is a perspective of a person who is looking at something and seeing a particular problem from a particular vantage point, and that person isn't wrong in total for that vantage point, that they are pointing to something real when they talk about industries that inject anxieties around weight and demonize fat people, and idealize other body types. And this has evolved, and in other parts in history it was women needed to be very, very slim. We have the modeling industry that idealized a waif type woman for many years, and there's stories about models themselves and the kinds of insane things they had to do, and restraint. um, and yet there are people who are fat who will need to, and should, and are, and will have goals for themselves, um, that are related to their own health. Sometimes it's related to health. Sometimes it's related to a personal test to see what they can do. Sometimes it's discipline. So you look at this thing, when you look at a person, any person, fat, slim, mid, athletic, whatever their body type, whatever they're doing, and whatever their goals are, whatever they're aiming for, um, it's important not to project our stuff onto them. If we see somebody who says they're so proud of themselves for losing 30 pounds, this could be a wonderful thing. They have perceived themselves, in a good way, and like they're proud of an accomplishment. And it's important not to project the political um, sensibility, um, even if it's true, even if this thing is true. You know what I mean? So it's like that's just something I want. Like to me, that's something. There's a spiritual thing there. This concept of the idea that there's no clean and easy list or clean and easy way to approach almost anything, including body weight. Let me see if I can make this more clear. Applause for this. Hold on. Um, there are some people who will need to learn to love themselves at whatever weight they are. That is what the woman wants us to understand when she was making that post. And to understand that probably a great number of the ideals that women and men are holding in their heads about how they should be, and that distance between what they think of themselves and this like idealized thing, that's been manufactured. And it's important to challenge those ideas and to be comfortable and to love yourself no matter what. Because some women are not inside that ideal, yo. You know what I'm saying? Some men are not inside that ideal. Most men are not inside that ideal. Most women are not inside that ideal. When it comes to weight loss, quite often it's a bigger stressor for women, right? To fit within a certain weight thing and blah blah blah. Some women need to find a way to love themselves and to learn to detach from external messaging and notions of beauty that have been fed to them, and should love themselves. And then other people will their spiritual journey, their process will include some kind of like this effort of stepping into something different, seeing if something new is possible. And that can come up. That could even be just a season. It doesn't even have to be how someone is forever. They can go through a season and determine this and have the experience and see what they look like and how they feel at different weights. And all of that is all part of a very complex process. You know what I'm saying? And we're all looking at each other and we can't help but to see our previous, our definitions. If I'm looking at you at the moment, you're looking at me in the moment, you see the definitions you hold in your head at the moment. You see your anxieties, you see your fears, you see your political triggers. You have an inner voice that is repeating the stuff that you've heard for yourself. It wants to project those limitations on other people and that framework for understanding them. And in this case, it is also possible to be, in a less privileged class. So like to be, quote, let's say a fat woman, it's possible to, it's not, not because, or a black person, or a queer person. It's not because you're in this like discriminated against class that you are above the possibility of misreading and projecting and discriminating also. That you know what I'm saying? Like we all are capable of this. And that's the nature of like perspective. And that's like a weird feature of this reality. I think it's 80+% of our disagreements and shit have to do with this kind of like this isness This thing, yo. Applause for the thing. Calling a thing. What's the language for this? This perspective, this difference of perspective, this invisible but pertinent and influential distance between each of us. That is like, you know, how we perceive things, what we see as problems, what we identify with or against. It's an interesting thing. I feel like I'm pretty attuned to it at this point, man. I see these kinds of things all the time. So I just wanted to I point out that, you know, the whole spiritual thing is I continue to try to like refine my understanding of what I'm pointing to there. What I've just described there, you might say, well, that's not spiritual. That's a what would that be? It's a social misunderstanding. It's just a Facebook thing. Oh, she's this woman just wanted attention on a Facebook post, maybe. Hmm. Well, what separates that from the spiritual? What if it's like what are we pointing to there? It's the psychological. I don't know. Um, we just talking, man. We just talking. Applause for it. 30 for 30. We just talking. We airing it out, man. You know what I mean? Every day, figuring out to come on here and figure out what the hell to talk about. We got an election coming up. Oh my goodness. I think less than 2 weeks. The biggest election ever. The most important election ever. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen an election where they didn't say that? Has that ever occurred? Hmm? Have you ever been involved in an election season where they were like, get out there and vote, have some fun. Not gonna be a big deal. It's just always crazy stuff, man. Always new heights. You gotta up it, man. Look at these new movies, man. Every time they do a new sequel, you gotta up it. Sheba and I just saw Triple X, the new Triple X, the newest version, where they went back to Vin Diesel. They gotta up it. This time he had a team, you know. He had all the stunts and all the crazy shit and blah blah blah. But this time he had a team of like some young gun triple Xers. Like these guys are real TikTok savvy and fucking spoiler at the end. Ice Cube pops up at the end. He's the only black man in the whole movie. Ice Cube pops up. He's because he was triple X. He was like the second triple X for like a movie or two. I think he got two movies in, yo. But how did I get here? They gotta keep upping it. They gotta up the narrative always. Oh, everything's at stake. Everything's at stake. I remember the George W. Bush versus Clinton campaign was very similar, and I was on Capitol Hill at the time, and it was very similar. The difference, of course, is now there's so many differences. There's so many differences. Your applause for that. The differences include, of course, social media and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and everybody has a voice. Everyone's, the internet is fast in the United States. There's also a whole bunch of ongoing atrocities, ethnic cleansings and genocide happening, particularly in the Middle East. We also have the actual sitting president who had to be moved to the side for the vice president, right? That Kamala Harris was actually a vice president who had to step in because the sitting guy is not up to par. And So you got all this mess. Then the other guy they're up against is this supposed ridiculous. I mean, he's like supposed fake billionaire, fascist, like media celebrity hype man clown from the 80s, moved from housing and got to deal with a new TV show network for a show, The Apprentice, that like rejuvenated his career and made him this celebrity and solidified him as this like businessman who's super smart, and everybody carried water for that. What a goofy thing we're in, yo. What a goofy, goofy set of things. And then I see like the conversation revolves around like her dress. Is Kamala not dressed? She could dress better. I saw, was it the Daily Beast had an article about this, and Donald Trump also leads a conversation on her race, that she's not black. I see a lot of black people taking this up too, and I don't see the value in any of these conversations, especially when there's we've just lost the whole. We've lost it in terms of meaningful like political discourse, in terms of looking at our problems in a real way and trying to assess them and come up with problems. I don't know if we ever had it. I don't know if as a child I was just under the assumption that they were doing that stuff. They look just as serious then as maybe they do now. I wonder if the kids get it, but I also get the sense that it's worse. I get that they're like these candidates to me feel worse. They feel dumber, and they feel less capable of like that whole presentation. The whole presentation of the steward of democracy and all that. I just feel like that's a wrap. And to be a 9-year old or a 10-year old, 15, a 12-year old looking at politics for the first time, I don't know if there's anything inspiring for them in the space of the moment. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Alert. Absolutely ridiculous. What the hell, man? What the hell? And then I want to point out, in the media space, and I'll probably jump off after this. In the media space, I just saw a video drop by this like YouTube channel that I halfway respect, because I think they're creative about the way they approach, human conversations. This channel called Jubilee. They drop things where they set up, 20 conservatives with one liberal, or they take a celebrity and where they go, they put, Christian conservatives have a conversation with Muslims or atheists or something like this. Um, and then I saw they dropped this thing. It was 20 Kamala voters against Ben Shapiro. And I'm like, what is this? No, it was 20 Kamala voters. 20 Kamala voters against a Republican is the title of it. And then you see Ben Shapiro's ridiculous femme childhood face on the thing. And then you watch the video and you see this. Again, they do an interesting job with the way they set up this thing, the production value of it. But they're normalizing Ben Shapiro, who is a terrible human being. It is only the fact that Ben Shapiro only thrives in a condition that's so depraved and backwards and media illiterate as our condition. He's the kind of fungus that grows only in this kind of dark, shitty space. Applause for that. I say it again, Ben Shapiro should not. Obviously, he has the right. I agree. I fully uphold the freedom of the First Amendment, and people's right to free speech and to be creative. But that's why I'm very much invested in the idea of a media literacy, of a broader system of growth, which I already see happening. It's happening. Ben Shapiro's credibility has been up here. It is declining slowly every day as he continues to be like an obvious carnival barker and like puppet for Donald Trump and for the state of Israel, mouthpiece, um, in the middle of a genocide, saying that he defends absolutely everything that the IDF does. Because that's his role. His role is to be the tip of the spear, to say the absurd thing. And then to see Jubilee normalize this guy. Oh, he's just a Republican here with these other. And by the way, he's always debating like students. This is a man, I believe, in his 40s at this point, and he's always debating like 19-year-olds on things. Um, this is how he gets an upper hand. This is how he ends up looking smart when we all know he's a bit of a doof, and his whole squad is a bit of a doof. Bunch of doofuses, the Daily Wire people. But it bothered me because we're talking about a genocide denier. We're also talking about a man and a person who created the Daily Wire and built the Daily Wire off the backs of non-binary people, off the back of um, leading the divisive discourse around um, around gender and around pronouns and around gender expression. That's who he is. That's what he made his business on. He rides on and creates content for a very narrow demographic of confused, conservative, angry, typically white men who don't deal well with the complexity of the human condition and the fact that some people experience things quite differently and have a very different experience and expression, and that even the words that they use and that you and I use have different meanings in different experiences, and that the art of this experience of life is being able to navigate that, right? So Ben Shapiro kind of is this media clown who, him and Matt Walsh, I mean, now they're doing documentaries. They've got a movie, Am I Racist? They sell chocolates, they sell chocolates that have nuts in them and chocolates that don't have nuts. And on their website, they sell it as him and her, him and her, right? They're doing like a pronoun kind of play and making money from what should be like an opportunity for us to see each other as humans and to actually have a discourse around what language is and what it means. What are non-binary people trying to do? And he won't sit down and have a conversation, sit across from, say, Alok. Alok V. Menon is I've brought this person up many times. They're a non-binary person who I think articulates what we're talking about in a really interesting and beautiful way. They're a poet. And it's someone who it's not even on his level. Like Alok and Ben wouldn't be able to communicate because Ben's communication level and what he's attempting is entirely on an entirely different frequency. So instead, he talks to 18-year-olds. And instead, recently, he calls Ta-Nehisi Coates a terrorist because Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote his observations after spending some time in Israel. Called him a terrorist. Called Trevor Noah that. And then you see the comments on the Daily Wire. You see all these guys jumping in and happily joking that maybe the Mossad should do this and that. This is who Ben Shapiro is. In a normal, healthy condition, Ben Shapiro's not allowed to operate this way. Or he operates in the margins and he's seen as a goofy, marginal figure. But Jubilee instead pulls him on, normalizes him, makes him look formidable. 20 people against Ben. It's absurd. 20 children against 20 college students against Ben again. It's absolutely absurd. I think I think we're going to see a lot of things changing, guys. I think things are changing in the moment. Things are changing in the moment. Things are constantly changing. Things are constantly changing. Where we at? That's at the 30-minute mark. We did it, folks. Another episode in the books. We're still on the 30 for 30. We're gonna keep going. Thanks for being here. Remember, you see what you're looking for, and also remember that it's all one thing. Okay? Okay? Are you gonna remember that? I hope you do. A lot of love, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yo. Peace. Last things first, you already win. You already him. You don't gotta pretend. Fuck them, you already king. You stay real, you confident in your skin. It's all now. Sit in the power that you already in. This the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cruel sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star veteran. You couldn't walk in my fucking shoes or carry them. Excuse my borderline is very thin. Married to the game like ever since maybe 2010. I realized most of y'all not serious. Point blank period. I flex and twist necks like cherry stems. Thought he was buried, but there he is, a new narrative. I keep winning.
They not used to what you bringing, kid.
I keep winning.
They don't even know what they looking at.
I keep winning.
Man, yo, pick one lane and stay in that
I
shit.
keep winning.
You came up on that hood shit.
I
my
keep
nigga,
winning.
You know, nobody seeing your vision for real.
I keep
man.
winning.
Even your